Okay, let's dive deep. We've got a really fascinating source here today.
Mm-hmm.
It lays out these 7 principles for inner transformation. Pretty fundamental stuff.
That's right. And what's great, I think, is how practical it aims to be. It's not just theory.
Right.
It's framed like a roadmap,
Yeah.
you know, a guide with actual steps for, well, significant personal change. And it uses these analogies from, like, everyday life.
Yeah, I saw that. Career, finances.
Yeah,
Makes it relatable.
exactly. So those big ideas don't feel so abstract.
Okay, so our mission here, just focusing on what this source provides you, the listener, is to unpack these 7 principles.
Mm-hmm.
We want to get into what they are, sure, but also why the source thinks they work and how you might actually apply them.
Yeah, across different parts of life, career, relationships.
Your finances, even just, your mental well-being day to day.
And the source kind of wraps this all up in an idea it calls spiritual royalty.
Spiritual royalty. Okay, we'll definitely need to explore what that means according to this material.
Yeah, through these principles.
All right, let's jump in. Principle number 1. The source says, see the old world as clutter and clear it away.
Mm-hmm. This is basically about mental decluttering, emotional decluttering too.
Okay.
The source talks about clearing out stuff that weighs you down.
Yeah.
Like old regrets you keep replaying, or grudges.
Or even spending habits that aren't helping you.
Exactly. Things that feel like mental baggage.
And the analogy it uses is pretty vivid, like an overflowing desk, right? Or an inbox just completely swamped.
Yeah, buried in old files. And clearing that physical stuff creates space, obviously.
Right.
But the source argues doing this internally creates that same kind of space. Mentally,
Emotional.
space for
New ideas.
new ideas, yeah. Quicker decisions, maybe, just less noise.
Okay.
And the benefit, according to the source, is pretty big. It says this clearing dissolves stress, and it frees up quite a bit of energy.
Energy you might not even know you're wasting.
Precisely. Energy you can then pour into, say, growth projects or setting up a savings plan.
Or just being ready for opportunities when they pop up.
Yeah, it's hard to move forward if you're, tripping over the past all the time.
That makes a lot of sense. Too much static, you miss the signal. Okay, so clearing the decks. That leads into principle 2 then.
It does.
Own your outcomes. Don't pin sorrow on anyone else.
Right. This one, it really gets to the core of how we react when things go wrong. It's about consciously shifting away from that impulse to blame someone else, even if the situation is tough or unfair.
Which is hard sometimes.
Oh, definitely.
Oh.
But the focus here, the source says, needs to be on your part, or, maybe more importantly, how you choose to respond to it. Taking responsibility for that.
The source uses a good analogy here, thinking about teams at work.
Yeah, the high-performing teams one.
Right. When a project goes sideways, it's easy to blame the boss or another department.
Or just bad luck.
Yeah. But the source notes that the really effective teams, they don't get stuck there. They ask.
Okay, what could we have done differently? Or what can I do right now?
That's a big pivot.
It is. And the source claims that pivot is transformative. It shifts the whole dynamic away from conflict towards, well, maybe collaboration.
Right.
It dissolves resentment because you're not stuck on what others did. And the source even suggests it helps your career.
How so?
Because you start to be seen as a solution finder, someone who moves things forward, not someone who just assigns blame.
Okay, I see. So, clear the clutter, take ownership. Which brings us to principle 3. Treat remembrance and self-check like a daily workout.
This one's all about consistency. Building self-awareness through regular, brief check-ins.
Daily, like every single day.
Yeah, but simple stuff. The source suggests things like an evening mind log.
A mind log? What's that?
Could be just noting down or even just thinking about, how many calm moments you had that day or maybe one decision you felt clear about. Really simple.
Huh. It's sort of like using a fitness tracker or keeping a food diary, but for your inner state.
Exactly like that. It's not meant to be a burden. It just gives you these little data points.
To nudge you towards healthier mental habits.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
The source implies this daily check-in builds inner strength, like exercising a muscle bit by bit.
Okay.
And these consistent small reviews, even just for a minute or two, the source says they really sharpen your focus.
And help with impulsive reactions.
Yeah, it helps reduce what the course calls emotional snacking.
Emotional snacking. I like that phrase.
Me too. Those quick reactive moments or distractions that, don't really help you.
Right.
And doing this daily builds up stamina. Inner stamina for bigger things like long-term projects or sticking to an investment plan.
Okay. Principle 4 feels Pretty significant, maybe a bit challenging.
That's a big one.
Donate the 5 vices: anger, greed, ego, attachment, lust, and lift the eclipse.
Yeah. It targets these really core human tendencies, doesn't it?
Definitely.
It's about actively choosing to let go of those really reactive, negative emotions. That flash of anger, the constant wanting more of greed, needing to feel important with ego.
Attachment, lust,
Yeah.
when they're running the show, basically.
Exactly. When they're uncontrolled and driving your actions. The source presents them as weights you're carrying.
And carrying them causes an eclipse. What exactly does the source mean by eclipse here?
Good question. It seems like the source uses eclipse metaphorically. Like these vices cast a shadow.
A shadow over what? Your potential.
Your potential, your clarity, your inner peace. Yeah. They obscure your view, stop you from acting from your best self.
Okay, so donating them lifts that shadow.
Right. And the source uses a really interesting analogy for how that feels. Like canceling subscriptions.
Oh.
Yeah, like going through your phone and canceling those apps you pay for but forgot about. Each one might be small.
But together it makes a difference in your cash flow.
Instantly boosts it. That's the feeling the source is pointing to.
That makes the idea of letting go feel much more tangible. It's freeing up resources.
Precisely. And the source says letting go of these vices frees up both emotional and financial bandwidth. Real bandwidth.
Okay.
Which makes actual space for, say, smarter budgeting, maybe more generous giving.
And better relationships.
And building more authentic connections, yeah. Because they're not tangled up in those draining, often self-serving motivations anymore.
Okay, principle 5. This one asks for a balance.
Right.
Balance, understand, which it calls sense, with inner power, essence.
So sense, here's the practical stuff. Knowledge, metrics, data, logic. The analytical side.
Got it. And essence.
Essence is presented as something deeper. Your quiet confidence, maybe your intuition, your motivational presence, how you show up.
And the source says you need both working together, not just one or the other.
Yes, absolutely. The analogy it gives is a really good manager.
Oh, yeah.
They don't just rely on the KPIs, the data, that's the sense.
Right.
They also offer real recognition, support, motivation. That's the essence.
Okay, because too much data without the human touch falls flat.
And all motivation with no clear direction doesn't really go anywhere either.
Makes sense.
So when you can bring together that practical understanding with a strong, confident inner state, the source says that's when you can act decisively, even when things get tough.
And influence others positively.
Inspire people, yeah. Family, colleagues. And the source suggests that over time, you actually start to change the atmosphere around you.
Interesting. Okay, moving to principle 6. This one challenges a common definition, it seems.
It does.
Purity is broader than celibacy. It's about watching thoughts, words, and silent attachments.
Yeah, this is about what the source calls clean mental code.
Clean mental code, like software.
Sort of. It's looking beyond just physical actions to your subtle inner state, being mindful of, say, negative thought loops.
Or grudges you're holding on to silently.
Exactly. Or gossip, or even getting, fixated on what other people have or do. Those silent attachments.
The analogy the source uses for this feels very modern, like hidden browser tabs on your computer.
Yeah, the ones draining your battery.
Right. You're not even looking at them, maybe not even harmful sites, but they're still slowing everything down.
That's the idea. These unexamined thoughts and attachments, the source says, they drain your inner energy the same way, silently.
So closing those mental tabs, addressing those subtle patterns, that has real benefits.
According to the source, yes. Tangible benefits. Reducing stress hormones, maybe sleeping better.
Okay.
And, crucially, it helps keep your ambition healthy, focused, not obsessive or draining.
So it fuels success long-term because you're not leaking energy.
Exactly, not leaking it in the background.
And that brings us to the final one, principle 7. This feels like it ties things together through action.
It really does.
Serve while you climb, sit on the heart throne, through helpful action.
This is all about integrating service, like genuine helpfulness, into your own journey of growth.
So not waiting until you've made it to help others.
No, doing it while you're still climbing, being generous with your kindness, your time, your skills, offering help without immediately thinking, what's in it for me?
Even while you're pursuing your own goals.
Especially then. The source gives the example of mentoring junior colleagues, even when you're working towards your own promotion.
Which might seem counterintuitive to some.
Maybe. But the source argues that far from holding you back, that kind of action actually signals you're ready for leadership. It shows capability.
Okay.
And offering that help genuinely, without expecting an immediate payback, without a spiritual fee, as the source puts it.
Right.
It has this powerful ripple effect.
Yeah.
It naturally builds your goodwill networks.
Makes you seem like a trusted partner, not just self-interested.
Exactly. And the source suggests it's like compound interest. These acts of service tend to bring back blessings, opportunities in unexpected ways, often much later on.
Wow! Okay, so those are the 7 principles according to this source. A lot to think about there.
Definitely. But it doesn't just leave you with the big ideas.
No, the source also includes this quick, actionable checklist, practical steps to actually start using these ideas.
Yeah, breaking it down into small things you can do daily or weekly makes it feel less overwhelming.
Right. So, for the morning, the suggestion is visually declutter one thing, one task, one corner of your room.
Connecting back to principle 1, clearing clutter to clear the mind. Simple.
Then midday. If something goes wrong, pause before blaming. Choose just one proactive step you can take instead.
That hits principle 2, owning your response.
Evening. Take a moment. Log maybe 3 calm minutes you noticed during the day. And maybe one vice or impulse you chose not to act on.
Touching on principles 3 and 4 there, self-check, and managing those vices.
Weekly. A quick review. How is your balance between sense the practical stuff and essence the inner strength on something you worked on?
That's bringing principle 5 into focus.
And monthly. Try to identify and consciously close one of those hidden energy tabs, a grudge, a worry loop.
Principle 6 in action, addressing those silent drains.
The source really seems to emphasize that these are small tweaks, right? Not massive overhauls overnight.
Exactly, gradual building blocks. But the idea is that over time, they add up to significant change.
And that change leads back to this concept the source introduced at the start, spiritual royalty.
Mm-hmm. And it defines that not as some, lofty title, but in really practical terms.
Like what?
Like clear thinking, healthier relationships, having vibrant energy, feeling confident about your finances, the tangible results of living by these principles.
So according to the source, these aren't just nice ideas, they're meant as actual tools.
Practical tools, yeah, for navigating life's challenges, seizing opportunities, and just building a stronger foundation overall.
Okay. So drawing purely from the source we've explored today, maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. Thinking about these principles, especially that idea of hidden energy tabs or the vices that drain resources, which one might be quietly affecting you the most right now?
That's a powerful question.
And following the source's advice, what single small decluttering step, maybe even from that checklist, could you perhaps take today just to start freeing up a little bit of that energy?